Hi everybody and welcome back to the Reconnection space. So it's been a while since we've done a Reconnection episode, and we are going to be making some changes in the Reconnection space in terms of who we're talking to and what we're talking about. But I think a great thing today is that my final guest, who I'm hoping will appear in the next version of whatever we're going to do here, is the fabulous coach Teresa Brooks. Hey Teresa.
Hi Ali, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
You're very welcome.
Exciting.
It is exciting, and it's been a while since I've done an interview. And Teresa and I have met a few times, and we've been trying to do this interview. So I know she's got something really valuable that she's going to share with you all, and it really fits in with the kind of work that we're both doing, but also kind of the way that the interviews are going to go in the future. So I'm loving the topic kind of that we're going to touch on. And Teresa, I'm just going to let you explain, because you do fabulous things. So why don't you tell everybody what you do?
Okay, thanks Ali. So yes, so I'm Teresa and I am a business coach, but I'm very much a personal coach as well. So my background was originally in holistic therapies and some counselling training, and I've always been hugely passionate about the person. And so whilst I love business and I have a media background in corporate, and I love sales and advertising and all that jazz, marketing, that's why I love the business. But actually what I do is I help someone to be as present as they can, and as best they can be in their business. So it really is all about them. So I coach the person and the business, and that combination together is really transformational, because it means that people grow. They really connect with their values, which is what I'm going to talk about today for myself. They learn how to live by them and to run their business by them as well. So they become aligned. And that's a really big word for me. And certainly the word going forward for 2020 is to stay aligned. And that's really my topic today. So that's what I do. And I also run a magazine called Coach, which is about professional coaching, supporting the industry, which you can get online and offline as well. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Fabulous. Thank you, Teresa. And she said that at the end, and I run a magazine. The magazine's awesome. I've been thankful enough to be featured a couple of times in the magazine in different ways. So do look out for that. That's Coach Magazine. And if you're watching this on any social media, you'll see some links at the bottom that will help you navigate around Teresa's world. And we'll cover those a bit later. So values. I need to not dive into, because I'd love you to come back and have a deep dive conversation. There's a hint about where we're going here on this channel. Great. About values, but you're actually going to share with us why values is so important to you and your own experience. So please share with us your reconnection moment.
Yeah, certainly. And of course, I'm going to talk about values an awful lot with my clients, and I help them to identify it. But this piece today with us is really about something more personal, and like why it matters to me. Like, why do I even want to talk about values to anyone? Why does it matter?
Yeah.
And what it was for me is when I first started my coach training, I got a lot more than I bargained for, which is often the way, right? When you're growing and you think, I didn't think it would be like this. And it was more of an emotional journey actually than I had expected. I thought it'd be very practical, very learning based and all of that. And I was wrong. It was one of the biggest growth periods for me, and it just really brought me into true alignment with myself. So I felt that when I did that training, I really reconnected with who I was on sort of like a deeper level, and what I felt I really needed to be doing in this world. So that was a good piece. But the bit that was a real twist was my coach and trainer is hugely values based, and all the training was underpinned by values work. So of course we come to the part where we're going to be looking at our own values. And whilst I'd always known what I stood for, what I believed in, what I thought was right, what I thought was wrong, a lot of the things that we all understand in general terms about ourselves, I didn't have any definitive words or structure or understanding about the meaning around those words that I was guided by.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there wasn't anything really like that. So when I was going through all of this, I was in quite a difficult change period at the time as well. And I remember going through this values exercise in my coach's book, and I did all the bits, and it was all starting to kind of unfold. And the questions that were laid out was like, why is this word important to you? What does it mean? Where has it showed up? Where have things gone against it? And I started getting really into it. And I was really, really, really excited to kind of find my way with this work, if that makes sense. And I was really pleased to get these pieces of these words out on a piece of paper. But what was better than that was really understanding what they meant to me. And I'll never forget it, because I was in my kitchen, and at the time I was in a relationship which was, you know, turbulent, shall we say, you know, lots of love and lots of good things, but turbulent, and not quite fitting in place, and felt a bit difficult here and there. And, you know, I'm sure any women that watching this is just going to totally understand what that feels like, and you keep trying to make the pieces work and all of that stuff. And I looked at this list and these words on there, and I was kind of doing a virtual cross-check, you know, between my values and this relationship, and I realised that they just weren't a match. And I remember just sort of like bursting into tears and thinking, oh my God, I need a glass of wine, because I realised that it was no wonder, you know. I mean, one of my values is growth, just for example, and he just wasn't into growing or developing or changing. He was a very static kind of person, not boring, but just static, and it bugged me. I used to, you know, why don't you want to do things, and why don't you want to learn more and more, and that kind of thing. And so there was, and I went all down like that, and I thought, oh my goodness, you know, I can't actually believe this. And it took a little while to sink in. And these are my top, you know, 5 values, because of course we did have things that aligned, but you know, those core ones are what really matters. And it was after that really that I thought, God, I can't really avoid the truth. You know, what they brought me was the truth. They brought me understanding that if that's what's really important to me, then I need to be guided by that, and I need to measure things in my life and my business along that. Because how can I go forward and be coaching other women in all sorts of areas, really, because lots of things come up, when I'm not being true to myself, or I'm in something that's not aligning with me properly? And so it was a big deal,
isn't it? It's huge, because
you
know, you almost transitioned, and it's like that thing, you can't unknow what you've now known. So there you were, pootling along, trying to make it work. It was all good. There was no real evidence as to why it shouldn't. And suddenly, bang, you've got this new knowledge. You can't not know this knowledge. And now it's even worse, because if you try and ignore that evidence, it's even more in your face, and there it is, and there it is. So now you've got to take action. But that's scary. But you did take action.
Yeah, I did, because, you know, you can't shuffle again on that stuff, Ali. You can't just go, try the cards again, please. You can't do it, because there it is laid out. And of course, actually, there was quite a lot of evidence as to, you know, why things might be difficult or not panning out. But it was more than that, and people will understand this, I'm sure. It just didn't feel right.
Right,
It just didn't feel right. And I kept thinking, trying to find all the logical, well, you know, that's quite difficult and that's a bit of a challenge, but this is good and that is good. But it just wasn't clicking together. And when I realised the framework of what I'm made of and what I'm built on, and I realised, you know, nothing right or wrong, just different. And I thought, no wonder we're never going to get forward here, because we're not thinking from the same place. We don't have our values aligned. What's important to you isn't as important to me, and vice versa. And we probably needed to go quite far down the values list before we started connecting, see, but that was too far down. And so really I sort of struggled along pretending that I didn't know this for a while, if I'm honest, and carried on with my training. But it was like then it was really grinding at me, and I thought, oh God. And anyway, ultimately I just like truly ended it. But I had ended things before and gone back, because we all do that, a little bit of bounce back. Well, you know, it's difficult, and you know, before you understand yourself in a very deep way, and certainly I'm a different person now than I was, you can't, it's difficult to move on sometimes. Do you know what I mean? You grip onto what you know, you hold on tight to what you know. So this time it was like really final, and actually what was wonderful about that is it was actually quite easy, because it was a bit of a no-brainer. So even though there was the emotions involved, I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work.
You had reason. You had some tangible stuff that you could say, I'm making this decision from a good place, and And it's not just a bit of a, oh, is this the right thing to do? You know,
No.
oh, maybe the grass is greener. This was really based on, like you say, knowing yourself and being able to stand by that knowing. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and the reconnection piece in that is where I reconnected with me really knowing what's what. And I think, you know, we all do. It's that gut feeling that we go, oh, yeah, but I don't know. And we're looking for all this evidence where actually the truth is really within us. And that's why the values work so important, because if I wander off track a little bit, I just do a values check-in and I go, you know, how am I living by my values, doing this or doing that? And I had a situation recently which made me feel quite uncomfortable. And I thought, what is it? What is it exactly? And so I just went back to my values and I looked and I found a couple that it nudged against really badly. And I was like, oh, it's just not for me, really. Yeah. And that was easier then. So, you know, some people call it like your compass, your inner compass. Some people call it your true north, whatever it is, doesn't matter the language. It's the same thing. It's reconnecting with you and trusting yourself, believing in yourself, as only you know how. So, of course, when people say, well, I don't agree with that, and why didn't you do this, and why didn't you do that? It doesn't really matter because you know, you see. And so you've got that peace. It brings a lot of peace to know your values on a deep level. And they're not just words on a bit of paper, because my words are going to mean a different thing to me than they do to you. Right. And to everybody else. So it's not just that general umbrella. And normally the values are developed in you by experiences, what you've experienced around what you think that word means. And also, you know, like a lot of people put honesty down as a value. So, you know, my question is, when have people been dishonest with you? Because sometimes values will show up when something's really gone against it. So it's quite interesting work. Yeah.
And I think we share that love of this piece of work. We can talk for ages on it, but you're right. I think people can go along in life, and if everything is fine, they never really pay much attention. But it's when you get that feeling and you know something's not sitting right, that's when you start to find out, oh, let me explore this, and I see now what my value is. And until I'd had that experience, I didn't even know that was important to me.
And it's the not knowing that brings the angst, because it's the not knowing that then makes you reach out to everybody else you can think of and go, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And of course, everybody thinks something different. So you're like, oh, I'm really confused. And actually, it doesn't matter what anybody says. When we're looking for reassurance, we always ask the people that we know are going to say what we want.
Right.
But don't we? We always go to them first to get that sort of reassurance. But actually what it gives you, knowing your values, and what it's given me is just, you know, a real peace of mind and security in myself, because I know where to go to solve a problem if I have one.
Beautiful.
Do you know what I mean? I know where to go instead of sitting there going, oh, I've got a problem. Why isn't this working out? And actually, Ali, you talk about the grass being greener. I was so sold on this, and it changed my life so much that I decided from that point forward, I was not going to be in any relationship until I got to a point where I was like, you know, fully ready for that. And that it would be a very sort of like values-led synergy that I wanted. So I gave myself from that point like a long time, and I'm still in that space now, and it's been amazing, because, you know, sometimes we fill gaps with the new things, with the other things, and getting to know yourself, you do need the space. So it's given me that as well, which has just been like amazing, really. Might sound all a bit weird, but it's true.
No, I think it's great. I think you have been in a relationship with yourself. And often that relationship is the one relationship that we neglect. And we look to everybody else to try and build that relationship. Because it's too hard to deal with our own stuff, and we just want to keep busy and cover it up. And suddenly when you but you have to give yourself permission, don't you? You have to give yourself permission to say, I'm just going to focus on me.
And some people struggle with that because they think it's selfish. But when you look outwards to one person to deliver everything to you, the things that you're responsible for as well, it's too much. And so, you know, just going off track slightly, but just in terms of relationships, the most important relationship is with self. Definitely. First of all, before anybody else. And that's the one people find the hardest. You're right. And that's where the values work really, really helps. And sometimes I can see it in people's faces, new clients at the beginning, think, what's all this about? All these words, what we're talking about? I've got to write all this stuff down. And then as the pennies start to drop, sometimes, in fact, I say sometimes, often it's life changing for them as it was for me, you know, because again, once these things bubble up and they think, oh, so you do have to be careful with that work as well, as you know, because it's deeper than people think. So it was huge for me. But yeah, it was good, very good. I'm so glad.
So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, you've talked there about the work you do with clients, and we will post all of the signposts that we have on all the platforms. But what is the best way people can find out about you? Where can they go first?
Well, do you know what? It might sound a bit old-fashioned, but I would just say give me a ring or send a message, because there's so many emails and formats and forms and sign-ups and things to go on to. And actually, I do take calls. It's really nice to speak to people. I'm a fan of Facebook Messenger, so anyone wants to connect on Facebook and chat to me, I'm completely open to that. It's not all about business. It's nice to just sort of talk to people sometimes about what they do and what they might need. So yeah.
Fantastic. So take a look at those links, and Teresa's given you their permission, because I know sometimes we feel a bit uncomfortable nowadays reaching out. But more than happy to get connected, which is what we're all about here. So my last question, as always, and it could be the very last time I ask this in this format, after all these interviews I've done over nearly 2 years, is, Teresa, what does reconnection mean to you?
I think reconnection, really, I take it as more of an like a flag word. Okay, so make sure that you don't get into a space where you have to go back and reconnect with yourself. You know, rather stay connected. Really find out, you know, who you are, what connects you, and how that works, and try and keep a real hold of that, so that, you know, you don't get that far away that you might need to like dramatically reconnect sometimes, because those gaps are what causes the problem. So it's just like a little reminder word actually to me, to sort of stay connected, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
So
Ali.
we thank Teresa for sharing her reconnection story. If you are interested in anything to do with reconnection, then of course all the links you need for both myself and Teresa are all available here underneath the recording. We are making some changes here at Be More HQ. We're going to be diving into lots of different topics, so watch this space, because I will be looking for people who want to come on and just talk about more life in general. We're going to be in conversation with, which I'm really excited about, and I know values is going to be on my list of just diving into what that all means. So we hope you've enjoyed these episodes over the last 2 years of the Reconnection space. We have interviewed over 60 people and heard some amazing stories. So do take a moment to go back and have a look at these stories that people have chosen to share. And there's some great insights there about how they've reconnected with themselves. And in the meantime, I wish you all a wonderful, mindful time and life. And I'll see you all soon here back in the Reconnection space. Take care. Bye-bye.